So I'd like to introduce first of you Michael Poulton. Michael is the former Director, Custom Relationship Management at Sennheiser, currently now in retirement. Is that right?
Absolutely.
Good for you. I might well be after this tonight as well. He has a long history of experience in the music industry as an active musician, a producer, a sound engineer, and in the sales and marketing sector. Michael was substantially involved in the developing of the microphones, which contributed to Sennheiser's brilliant entry into the music business. So. Oh, and Michael's asked me, he hasn't spoken English for about a year, and so he's asked me to speak really slowly. I thought I'd tell you that just in case you thought I'd had a stroke or something.
I will remind you, don't worry.
So Michael, tell us how it all started. Evolution. It's a big word, isn't it, evolution? It's like 20 years of evolution. It feels like one of those films where the clouds move really fast, and you know, if it was 20 years of full evolution, I would have walked into this building as an ape and then turned into a man in 2 hours. But so Michael, where did it all start? Was there a big bang, or you know?
The launch was a big bang, but it started pretty slow because within the company, within the KG in Wedemark, we had a problem with dynamic microphones. They were not profitable. So then I was a product manager for wire-bound microphones by that time. And the company came to me and said, okay, we have 3 options. One is stopping building microphones, dynamic microphones. Wow. The other option was go to China, or please sell quantities that we can invest into our automatic line. And this is where I started, because I choose option 3, and the company choose option 3.
That's quite daring.
It was a long sleepless night, and I've defined, let's say, the 10 microphone commandments.
Okay.
And I can't remember, it's a long time ago, and
I'm
retired. Yeah, one of them is you have to be successful in the US market.
Okay.
It's really, the second one I think was hit the right price points and outperform competitors by certain ways. It's not only the sound, sometimes it's just the dealer margin to outperform a competitor.
Yes.
And there were 7 more, I can't remember.
No, that's fine.
That's fine, yeah. Otherwise, my flight goes tomorrow at 7.
That's fine. We're all good, thanks. So you and obviously, I mean, there's the elephant in the room, I think, here, which is the Shure SM58, which was obviously become an industry standard. Were you trying to build something to compete with that, or?
Absolutely, you have to, because it's the industry standard. All sound engineers somewhere around are used to that sound and microphone, and they go to the desk and put a little bit higher end, and it's working.
Yes.
And this is what we compete with.
So how did you go about doing that? I mean, you've talked about the 10 commandments, and I mean, that's a big thing to take on.
Actually, we got an international team together. We called it the Tiger Team, whatever. So you have it at Shure, they have the Blue Band team. So all companies have some kind of international team.
Right.
And because from Wedemark, which is somehow countryside of Hanover, you can't see the world that close. And so we had, out of our organization, specialists for microphones, brought together 5 people.
Right.
And in that group, we discussed and defined the products. And after 2 bottles of wine, we defined the name.
And of course, that's how it should be done.
I think we fought one day in a conference room in Los Angeles with SE, whatever, all those kind of names. And then we drove with a bus to a restaurant and had wine and said, evolution. That's it.
Yeah, fantastic. Done. And here we are now. So the Tiger team, who was that made up of? Was it made up of engineers, or does
no engineers? It was really sales and marketing, just sales and marketing people.
Right. Wow. So how many microphones did you need to, I'm just thinking about this whole thing and thinking, to make something profitable, you've got to produce thousands of microphones. So you said you weren't selling that many dynamic microphones. How many were you?
I think the best-selling model by that time was the 421.
Okay, yeah.
And we sold close to 5,000 per year.
Wow.
Per year, not per day.
Gosh, and so how many, to make a kind of, to compete with something like the SM58, how many microphones did you have to sell?
I think it's not to compete with the
No,
SM58
sure.
because this is higher volume.
Yes.
We said we were number 8 in the market. We said we defined to become number 2.
Wow.
And there, the minimum was 150,000 to invest into an automatic line.
That's a big difference from 5,000 to 150,000. No wonder you didn't sleep.
Yeah.
And
Look at my hair.
you've still got a fine head of hair.
No. It was really dark
was it?
black when it started.
Oh, well, you're looking very distinguished now. So
This is 150,000 pieces.
and you managed it.
Yes.
You did.
No, not me.
No.
It's
Yes.
of course the team and the sales.
Yes.
We all together.
And was that over how over a long period of time, or?
We achieved it pretty fast.
Wow.
So
Okay.
nowadays it's higher. So I'm not involved anymore, but
No,
it's
of
higher.
course. Of course. Well, I mean, you do see Sennheiser microphones all over the place now, and sparkly ones as well, which are really nice, aren't they? Of course, yeah. No, I'm a real microphone geek. I'm the telly. I go, oh, that's a Sennheiser, that's a 935, that's a, wow. So you achieved the target of 150,000, and interestingly, you talked earlier about the dealers and the market and making the margin right. Did that play a part in being able to shift 150,000 microphones?
Of course.
Yeah.
You bring something to the market at the right price, right quality. And in the MI business, margin always plays a role.
Right. And did you how did you convince people? I mean, how did you convince sound engineers and artists and, people to take on this new microphone? I mean...
Traveling.
Travel. Did you have any...
A lot of, let's say, guys in the local organization helped a lot.
Yes.
And open up dealers.
Right.
This was really the target. Going to mom and pop stores in the US, it's a tough thing to do.
But and did you have any artists, well-known artists, endorsing the microphones? Did you give them, or loan them on a permanent basis? That I was just schooled on before. Did you? Yeah. Did you? I mean.
Yeah, I think the first one was Elton John. So
okay.
for the launch,
well, yeah.
we
Wow.
were working together with Elton John and, of course, his crew and his technician. And I think you found a special microphone with Elton John printed on. So we did some arranges
Gosh, that's
there.
going from like zero to...
And, of course, we spent thousands of dollars for wine for the crew.
Seems to be a running theme through this, doesn't it? That's amazing. Well, Michael, thank you. I mean, we'll come back to you because I'd quite like to just open this up, with all of you, because I'm sure you've got kind of other things to talk about. I'd just like to introduce Martin Fischer now. Martin is the senior product manager for Sennheiser Professional Division, and he's been working for the company 32 years, is it?
Jesus, yes.
Wow, gosh. You need to drink a lot.
And not retired yet.
No. Okay. And he's one of the most knowledgeable experts when it comes to the wireless microphone systems. His knowledge and experience was imperative in developing Evolution Wireless Series. Martin has a technical background, and his favourite hobby is playing music in his band, which I found out was a folk band earlier on. Is that right? Fantastic.
Yeah, correct.
I quite like folk music. I'd like to talk a little bit about the Evolution Wireless Series, because I don't know whether people were aware, but the first Evolution mics were handheld wired mics, weren't they?
It's 98
Yeah.
was introduced a wired mic.
Okay. So, but Martin, you were instrumental in kind of pioneering and developing and the wireless mics, weren't you? Because I mean, my first involvement with Sennheiser and Evolution mics was the wireless series. I didn't know, you could just get wired mics. So that was my first introduction, and it seems now that they're everywhere. Sennheiser Evolution wireless mics. So tell us a little bit about how that started and and your involvement with it.
Yeah, I think it was almost in 1997, and it was a natural decision to not only offer wired microphones but also wireless. And we have the acoustic there, so we have to do something around that, which means a transmitter and receiver. Mm-hmm. And it was again his Tiger team who gave the initiative to that. And so there were a couple of requirements which were very clear, and such as has to be rugged, has to be stage-proof, have to be safe transmission, have to use the acoustic of the Evolution, and and of course the price point, because this was at that point not there where we have to be when we want to address musicians. And so the requirements were very clear, and so I went to the development department and said, well, this is that what we want to have, make.
Wow.
And and they really succeeded in doing it in a very short time. And this is not only a receiver and a transmitter, but you also have to see you need a body pack and a handheld transmitter. You need an in-ear wireless system, so we had to make a wireless in-ear monitor, transmitter, and receiver. And we even managed to divide that in several series by giving it additional features.
Right.
So in total, it is a complete bunch of new microphones, new products, and in the end, we had them ready at least as prototypes by end of '99, where we launched these wireless microphones at the Plaza show in London.
Wow. And had Sennheiser built wireless microphones, non-Evolution wireless mics before that?
Yeah, of course, we had wired mics, but on a completely different price point. So they are mostly addressed to broadcast, to theater, musicals, and real professional live sound. So this was our wireless stuff, and it was really expensive. So this was fine working, of course, but it is not affordable for musicians where we want to head.
No, it's like I was told that everybody always buys the second cheapest bottle of wine. There's a theme here, isn't there? With this wine? The second cheapest bottle of wine when they go to the restaurant. So it's a little bit like that, So you don't go for a really, really cheap microphone, but you see, Sennheiser Evolution in the middle of this really expensive stuff. And then, I can understand why that kind of took off. And, and I can say this, I mean, they sound phenomenal. They've, always sounded phenomenal. And that's brilliant. Let's keep you here. Let's keep talking about this. And I just, we want to just try and kind of paint a picture of the beginning of this, the whole evolution. And then, in this, we're going to have a second half, and we're going to bring the rock and roll people on, the people using the Sennheisers. So these are the scientists and innovators and people in suits here. We've got people in shorts and stuff. So I want to introduce you to a legend, really, in this country, Andy Lillywhite. Currently part of, yes, indeed, he is. Indeed a legend. Currently part of the European Custom Development and Applications Engineers team at Sennheiser. Andy was previously Chief Engineer for Sennheiser UK for 12 years, heading up the technical team across all professional audio applications, including broadcast, audio for video, touring theatre, corporate installation and market segments. And live before Sennheiser, included roles at the BBC and at the National Theatre. Good grief.
Who writes
yeah,
this stuff?
Indeed, yeah. So, Andy, where did it all begin with you? You've been at Sennheiser for a million years as well, haven't you?
No, I'm the newcomer here.
You're a new boy, aren't you?
I'm the new boy in this company.
Okay.
I'm only in my 17th year.
Oh.
So, 17 years. I was late to the evolution party, if you like.
Right.
And it was a bit of a surprise because I'd been working in the before that with the stuff Martin just mentioned, the high-end wireless, and then I'd had about 5 years doing mostly two-way radio communications. Suddenly I'm back into the pro audio world proper with Sennheiser, and they've created this new evolution line, it was a bit of a shock to suddenly discover all this stuff. A good one, I will say. But so I joined the company in 2002, this thing here rapidly became a vital tool of the job. Because, well, the internet was a thing, you may remember, in 2002, but not everybody used it all the time. To digress slightly, I did in that first year have a conversation with a senior member of the sales team because I'd had a phone call from somebody asking about a microphone that was in this book. And as I would typically do in those days, the first thing you'd say to the customer on the phone was, do you have access to the internet? Because that wasn't a given. And they said, yes. So I went to direct them to the web page where this microphone was. But it wasn't there. It was not on our website. Anyway, we moved on.
Nothing's changed really, though, is it?
I sent them some information some other way. And I mentioned this later to this senior salesperson. I said, why isn't this microphone on our website? And without a trace of irony, the gentleman said, oh, we don't sell many of those. I think we've come a long way since then, anyway.
Yes.
So yeah, I was introduced to this with all the Evolution wired mics in it.
Fantastic. And you've got a picture of a 421 on the front.
It has got a 421 there, yeah.
One of my favourite mics in the world. So Andy, so you got thrown into this thing then, yeah?
A bit, yeah.
So what was your role then in the beginning? So these guys had kind of pioneered it and bought the wired, the start of the evolution, and Martin bringing the whole wireless thing through. And so what was your involvement then?
So my role then and largely now is effectively the interface between the company and the users and the customer, our distributors that sell to those end users. So I'm that interface. And if engineers on the road have problems, then very likely they're going to be talking to me. And in the first instance, it's my role to try and solve those problems, and then, if necessary, call in the big guns. The interface.
But were you involved in the beginning, or when you first started? Were you involved in developing the product at all? So, I mean, your direct involvement with artists and engineers and stuff like that in terms of support, were you getting information back in terms of saying we'd like it to do this, or we'd like that, or we need to change this, or we'd like this to happen? Was that part of your role?
So I arrived at a very curious time, it turned out. I didn't know that at the time, but I arrived at a curious point in the evolution history, I guess. I'd been with the company about 6 weeks when my boss at the time, Dave Hawker, sadly no longer with us, said, we're doing this thing on Sunday, we need you to be there. Okay, fine. And we went off to a dark, depressing rehearsal room in North London on the Sunday. Somehow, nothing to do with me, but somehow people, 20 practicing rock and roll engineers turned up.
Wow.
On the day. 10 front of house, 10 monitor engineers, some who had been using the existing Evolution mics and some who had not. And of course we also had a contingent of people from Sennheiser KG, which I remember Michael was there. I'm pretty sure Martin was there. He's not.
Martin can't remember it, but
he's busy.
He's not
one day.
Nearly retired.
One day in your life, but I've been with the company 6 weeks. It made a big impression on me. And the idea of that day was to get feedback from these engineers on what they liked, what they didn't like about the existing mics. There were some samples of some secret new mics for them to try. And there was a vocal coach to act as a sound source for this, and we borrowed a band called Faithless. We borrowed their monitor rig that was in that rehearsal room. That's why it was on a Sunday. And that was really the start of the development, as I understand it, Michael will correct me if I'm wrong, of what became the Evolution 900 series, because the original Evolution series all start with an 8. So we have the 800 series, and the idea, I think, was to take it to the next level. The 800 series had gone really well, as Michael said, and the idea was to take it to the next level and have another step in the chain.
Well, that's absolutely true, but second was generation 2 of Evolution Wireless. Mm-hmm. Those two were just started at the concept, and I remember we had a technical problem, because if you put together 8 wireless microphones on a desk, which people normally do, mm-hmm. we had problems with feedback because the blocking was bad, and that's why we had to push for the next generation.
Okay.
And the next generation also was called Pushing the Limits, right. Really to have new technical input to become, again, the leader in the market.
There was a lot which came up when we decided to make the second generation, and so lots of come from your side, and but also your Tiger team was very creative. I remember very well about the body pack transmitter, because the body pack transmitter of the first generation looks a little bit like a brick. And he told me, I asked him, so what should we do with the body pack transmitter? And he told me, make it more sexy.
It's okay.
I'm with you on that.
Could you please give me a little bit more details?
No.
Just make it more sexy. Okay, then I go to the development. Please make the body pack more sexy. And they really achieved it. It was the second generation comes up with a body pack which looks much more sexy, right?
Absolutely, yeah. That was perfect.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It is. It's nice to hold as well, you know, and stuff like that. So actually, this crazy name, Evolution, you came up with over however many bottles of wine you did, actually sort of became true as it evolved, didn't it? You know, as it sort of, and you know, how many products are there now in the Evolution in terms of microphones? Because there's the 935, the 945, the 835, the 965, and that, I mean, I'm just saying those at the top of my head. There's more though, aren't there? I mean, you've got all the drum mics now and instrument mics and stuff.
At least there are 2 different kind of series. So the 6800 is one series,
yeah.
Price point. Let's say it's a mid price point of the market,
yes.
And above that it's the 900 series. It's also a complete microphone series for all application, like the 6 and 800 series. It's called 6 and 800 series by the time we think about other stuff. So
too many bottles of wine then.
Yeah, but maybe the next generation we call it 800 series completely, then clean up all the 600 whatever.
And so the evolution then of the wireless thing. So you started with the G2. The G3, and now you're on G4. What are the main differences? Is it just improvement in technology or facilities, or gadgets, or what are the differences between those?
This is really a couple of differences. So as I just told, from G1 to G2 there was a completely new body pack.
I didn't even know there was
from
a G1.
G2 to G3 we made a completely new handheld transmitter. And on G4, I would say it is. I wouldn't say it's a facelift, but it's a little bit more. We have made new designs, but also we put some new features into that. And so I think the biggest steps are to G3, because the G3 really becomes as an industry standard, which was really ready engineered.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Except for one guitarist.
Yes, which we'll learn
will
about,
be mentioned in the next
later.
one.
Yeah.
Only one.
Only one.
Fascinating, that is. But I mean, technology's obviously come on a long way now in terms of being able to scan all the RF frequencies and stuff and put huge systems together now.
Yes, I mean the questions we have to answer are getting, in the beginning. Some of the questions were quite basic.
Yes.
When I started, that people would ask. Now people have learned a lot more, so the questions get harder.
Of course.
Because by the time people pick up the phone, they're usually really in trouble.
Right.
usually nothing to do with the hardware, I will say. It's, you know, but wireless is
I
still
mean,
a bit of a black art.
that's the thing that's sort of, you know, that I've noticed over the years, and in talking to other people and talking to engineers and my own experiences, that Sennheiser's sort of backup and support and willingness to get involved, you know, not in just, you know, because somebody's got a big name or thing, but seriously willing to get involved and you know, and to support the products, but also to support the people using them as well. You know, I honestly can't think of another company where I've had that support, and I know, you know, we'll talk to others in a little while who will say the same thing.
You mentioned about making the brand sexier. What did you have to do to make it sexier?
Actually, that's a really good question. Yeah.
Just out of interest.
At least it has become smaller.
That's not normally sexy, is it? Actually, now that you've asked that question, I think that I'd just like to talk to Andy a little bit about this, because talking about making microphones sexy, you guys do make beautifully sparkly microphones, don't you?
Microphones with Sennheiser's name on have been made sparkly. It is true.
Yes.
Yes.
How did that come about, though? I mean, how did
I
you...
honestly don't know where that started. Anybody know where? Yeah.
Sparkly's alive.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, listen, if you can't have big, you might as well have sparkly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Katy Perry's microphones were like diamantine custard.
Yeah, there's
They were
been,
super sparkly
There's-
and customized.
Yeah.
Very sexy.
we should have brought some of the sparkly ones with us, shouldn't we? But we still
Yeah.
have the odd one.
Well, Andy, haven't you got a story? I think you have. I remember seeing
The Sporty Spice.
about a blinged up radio mic for Snoop Dogg or something.
The Snoop Dogg one.
Yeah, come on, we're going to hear this.
Sorry.
Yeah.
That's what you want to talk about. Yeah, so the whole thing for bling, sparkly mics, certainly has kept me busy from time to time. I mean, the peak, before we do the Snoop Dogg, so the peak sort of bling mic was having to, if somebody has a wireless mic, so we're talking about wireless mics, on an event that's got multiple artists, so an award show, for example, multiple bands on stage, you've got to have the right frequency range, and the quickest way to achieve that is to take the shell off the microphone and put the right electronics inside for that show. And the most I've ever done of those for one show was 14.
Wow.
So 14 different artists all turning up, this is my mic, and having to change the innards so that we could actually use them, and then change them all back at the end. But the Snoop Dogg one was special,
Okay.
It has to be said.
Snoop Dogg.
Snoop Dogg.
In it, you know.
Yeah. So Snoop Dogg was hosting MTV in Frankfurt, I think it was. I forget the year now. It was MTV European Music.
2007.
Is that what it's? Is that what I said last time? Must be true.
Yeah.
Yeah. Frankfurt MTV European Music Awards. Snoop Dogg is hosting. Snoop's manager turns up with his mics in a little briefcase. You know, because we've already had the discussion that we're going to need to change the frequency range because these have come from America and this isn't going to work here. So it turns up with this little briefcase with these two mics in, and I was not really prepared for what I was going to see when I opened these up. And he handed me this briefcase and said, I'm off, I'll be back in an hour. Okay, fine, that's plenty of time for me to do what I've got to do. I opened this thing up. These things were not just diamante encrusted, they were like huge knuckle guards on them, and that they weren't the regular sort of Swarovski crystal or bits of glass. These things were real gems stuck all over these things, and these things have been silver plated or platinum. I thought, I have a wife and family at home. If anything happens to these, well, this bloke's seen my face. He knows who he handed them to. And he's disappeared and left me with them. And then half an hour into the job, the rest of the crew went, oh, lunchtime, we're off to catering.
And left you.
And left me, and I'm not leaving these. I'm not going out. They were spectacular. I wish I could show you a picture of them, but we don't know. They were spectacular. One had his name on, Snoop Dogg, all the way across the knuckles. And the other one was in the shape of a huge ganja leaf.
Of course it was.
Which the TV director declared would be the spare when I showed them both to him.
How much do they weigh?
I dread to think. I have no idea. I think effectively they're priceless.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Irreplaceable, which was how I felt about it at the time. So yeah, that was
And
peak
who
bling.
makes these? Do you guys make the sparkly ones?
Some of them
Yeah.
are made in the factory. Some of them are made by special companies
Right.
who can handle that much better because at least we are a factory.
Yeah.
But I think the whole fashion was started by Prince. At the beginning of the 90s, Prince ordered 16 gold-plated microphones at Sennheiser.
Wow.
And they had a pistol grip. He had, let's say, he's used the microphone with a pistol, and during that tour, he was just touching gold. So everything what he was touching had to be gold-plated.
Gosh.
And so he asked for the microphone, he paid them, and he lost, I think, every show won. So
Wow.
it was for us a good business.
Yeah.
I like that.
Amazing.
And this is for the first time that we really had a special color for a microphone with a pistol grip and different style. And
That's amazing that you do that. I mean, I love that you know, you're willing to kind of, you know, really get involved and customize stuff. So, I mean, we're going to have a whole Q&A session at the end, but is there any more questions to ask these guys? Yes.
Just going back, what were the early problems with frequency allocation?
Martin or Andy? Yeah, these guys.
Well, this is a problem which becomes more and more serious. So frequency allocation 10 years ago was not really a big topic, I would say. It becomes much more serious in the last years, and this is mainly due to the fact that in each country the usable frequencies for microphones are shrinking. So the UHF range becomes smaller and smaller because it is sold to other mobile services, and so the allocation of frequencies becomes more and more difficult. And it is not the case that if you have one system, you can work with it over the world, but each country has their own regulations, their own standardization, and this becomes more and more difficult to get a system which works in more than one country, I would
So
say.
how does Sennheiser manage that?
Yeah, we extended the bandwidths. So when you look from one generation to the next, we extended the bandwidths so that there's more options to go into different countries. But in the end, we have to define more frequency variants. So when we started with G1, we had 5 frequency variants. With G4, we have 15. And so you can see how it works and how we have to manage this frequency allocation topic. And it will not become easier.
That's an ongoing thing, isn't it? I mean,
it's absolutely ongoing because you have to pay, in every country you have to pay for regulation, different type of regulation.
Sure.
So it's not that easy anymore. But let's say the near future, I'm not involved, it has to become digital because here you have more features to look into the air and to standardize it. It's let's say the wireless has to become digital.
But this is for the next round.
Because because air is very expensive nowadays.